New Bern was the centre of a lot of the rescue efforts over the last couple of days. It's been hit very hard. We've had a bit of a break in the weather over the last half an hour. You can see behind us just some of the damage we've had over the last few days. There's a boat there that has ended up on the side of the street. That street there is completely flooded. The problem with New Bern is it is at the confluence of two major rivers, the Neuse River and the Trent River. And you can see how that river, the Neuse River, major river, has broken its banks. It's flooded over the fence there. And all of this has been underwater for the last 24 hours. Now, in New Bern, many of the houses, at least the bottom story, ended up flooded. So that's why we had so many of those rescue efforts, because a few hundred people decided not to listen to the government's advice to evacuate from this area. They stayed and they needed that emergency evacuation. So this has ended up being one of the areas that has been that has suffered the most during this hurricane that's since been downgraded to a tropical storm.
What about the speed at which Florence is moving across the area that you are? There's some statistics here. You mentioned a couple of rivers there. There's news of another river in Hartnett County in North Carolina. There's a mandatory evacuation order along that river, which is expected to rise more than 5 meters above flood stage. Flood stage is 5.5 meters. The latest forecast that it would crest at almost 11 meters. You can't prepare to defend yourself against that kind of water level, can you?
That's right, and we've seen the same thing here as well. As I said, you know, these major rivers that are just on the sort of edge of town and now lapping the bottom of highways, of overpasses and underpasses. They've gone from looking like two rivers to looking like an ocean on the edge of town. North Carolina is full of rivers and inlets, and that's what makes this hurricane or tropical storm so dangerous. It's slow moving, so these floodwaters that are here right now will be gradually making their way across this low-lying, flat agricultural state. And that's why, even though the threat of the hurricane may have dissipated somewhat and it has been downgraded, those winds are not as strong as was predicted 4 days ago, the floodwaters are on the move. And there are cities and towns all over that inland area of North Carolina, South Carolina, and they are bracing for these floodwaters to come, not only from the rivers, but also from the torrential rain. Now, you can't see that rain right now. It has stopped for the moment, but we were in it all day yesterday, and it was like being under a waterfall, just constant pouring rain. Already they're talking about some areas having received 60, 70 centimetres of rain, predictions of up to 1 metre. And North Carolina just can't cope with that sort of rainfall. The water table can't absorb it, so it only has one place to go, and that is on the ground. And that's why we're seeing so much flood water here, but a lot more still flowing upriver.
What about people without, what about people without electricity? It was fewer than 24 hours ago that the number was 800,000. There was reported to be almost, 1.5 mile long line of utility crews that had come from California, from Canada, to try to deal with the electricity problem that people will, of course, find more difficult as it gets dark where you are.
That's right, and we've found in the evacuation centres many people had decided to leave at the last minute simply because they couldn't cope without electricity. The officials have been saying that the state could end up with 3 million people without power. As you said, emergency crews have come from interstate, from all over the country. In the town that we're staying in, there's a big power crew from Texas. The problem on Friday was they couldn't get out and about to do anything because the winds were too strong. It's calmer today, and we have seen many of those, trucks on the road sort of trying to start to restore some power. But already almost 1 million people don't have electricity. That's a huge number. People have to be prepared with ice, with food supplies, with generators. And they're saying it could be some weeks before electricity is restored to some of these areas.